Breaking news! The Baltimore Ravens are quietly brewing a storm behind closed doors, and what's unfolding at the Under Armour Performance Center might catch even the most diehard fans off guard. With training camp looming and final roster cuts just weeks away, whispers are growing louder about some shocking decisions that could completely alter the shape of this team. We're not just talking about depth pieces or fringe contributors. No, some names being thrown around are players you probably never imagined seeing on the chopping block. And the reasons behind these possible moves? They're deeper, more calculated, and way more intense than most fans realize. But before we move on, make sure you hit that like button if you're a true Ravens fan. It's always amazing to see fans of all ages supporting this team. And if you feel like it, comment, "Go Ravens," down below to show your pride. Let's get into it, because the names we're about to talk about could very well spark the most heated debates of this offseason, and the implications stretch far beyond just the 2025 cap sheet. Let's get right into it, because things are heating up, and we need to talk about 4 names that are flying under the radar but might not survive roster cuts. First up, David Ojabo. That name alone probably triggered some emotional reactions for Ravens fans. This is a guy we've talked about a lot, first with excitement when we drafted him, then with concern through his injury battles, and now we're talking about cutting him. That's right, moving on from David Ojabo could be a very real scenario. The savings? Nearly $1.8 million in cap space for 2025. That's not pocket change. And while the International Pathway program allows Baltimore to carry 91 players in camp, that extra slot might not justify keeping someone who just hasn't been able to stay healthy or productive. 3 seasons, 5 games, for sacks, 18 pressures, those are tough numbers to defend. And when you've got edge rushers like Ojabo, Kyle Van Noy, rookie Adisa Isaac, and breakout candidate Tavius Robinson looking locked in, there's simply no room to hold on to someone based on potential alone. It's a cold decision, but sometimes that's what this business demands. Now let's shift to the inside linebacker room, where Jake Hummel might find himself on the outside looking in. Signed during free agency, sure, but does that guarantee a spot? Absolutely not. In fact, cutting him would free up another $1.1 million. And the rise of undrafted rookie Chandler Martin is making that decision even more realistic. Martin has flashed serious playmaking instincts during OTAs and minicamp, nearly snagging multiple interceptions, and that kind of upside can't be ignored. With Roquan Smith and Trenton Simpson locked in, and Teddy Buchanan, who cost a 4th-round pick this year, solidifying a spot, the final ILB job could come down to Martin versus Hummel. And if Martin wins, which is looking increasingly likely, then Hummel's days in Baltimore might be numbered. It's worth remembering that this wouldn't be the first time a free agent signing gets cut before the season. History says it can, and does, happen under John Harbaugh. Then we have Jalen Armour-Davis. Of all the players on this list, he might be the one most likely to make the final cut, but there are still legitimate reasons to question his spot. First, the Ravens are now testing him at safety, which Zach or confirmed. That's a clear sign they're trying to find ways to keep his football IQ and versatility on the field, or even called him maybe the smartest guy in the defensive back room. But here's the issue. It's a crowded room. At corner, you've got Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa, Jalen Armour-Davis, and others. At safety, Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks are locks, along with A.R. Darius Washington, pending recovery, Bo Bray, and Snooky K. The only way Armour-Davis sticks around might be if he fully commits to safety. If that move doesn't pan out, the Ravens could opt to cut him for another $1.1 million in cap relief. That's a painful move to consider, especially for someone they're clearly trying to develop, but versatility doesn't guarantee a spot, especially when others are pushing just as hard. And finally, let's talk wide receivers, where Anthony Miller looks like a likely cut. Yes, he made some plays in minicamp, including a beautiful 35-yard diving grab, but the writing's on the wall. With Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and DeAndre Hopkins headlining the group, and young talents like Leonte Wester, Devontae Walker, and Dayton Wade making noise, Miller is quickly sliding down the depth chart. Tylan Wallace is also back, and with a deep WR room, it's hard to see Miller making the 53. The smart move might be to stash him on the practice squad, keeping him as an emergency call-up in case of injuries. That move would still save the Ravens just over $1 million. Or is there still time for redemption? That's the question haunting fans right now. David Ojabo is a first-round talent whose career has been derailed by injuries, but potential doesn't win games in the NFL. It's about production. And if you're being honest with yourself, ask, do the Ravens have time to keep waiting? There's a championship window right now, and every roster spot matters. The edge group has momentum, depth, and flexibility. Kyle Van Noy brings experience. Ojabo has turned into a complete defender, and both Malcolm and Adisa Isaac have been building strong cases for playing time. Tavius Robinson's physical traits alone make him an intriguing stash. Keeping Ojabo simply for what he could be doesn't seem like the calculated decision this front office usually makes. You might love the idea of the story, but the reality? It's becoming clearer by the day. Unless Ojabo explodes during training camp, this could be the end of the road in Baltimore. But what about Jake Hummel? Some fans might brush off this one because he's not a big name, but these are the types of cuts that send messages in training camp. Being signed in free agency doesn't lock anything in. The Ravens brought in Hummel because they needed a body for special teams and depth, but Chandler Martin is pushing that narrative hard. Martin's reads, quickness, and nose for the football have impressed coaches. If he keeps stacking practices and turns heads in preseason action, the coaching staff might go with upside over familiarity. It wouldn't be the first time Baltimore rolled with a UDFA who earned it. Just ask guys like Bart Scott or Patrick Ricard how it worked out. In a room that already includes Roquan Smith and rising starter Trenton Simpson, there's only so much room for rotational guys. If Martin can also contribute on special teams, there may be no reason to keep Hummel around. Now let's revisit Jalen Armour Davis, the player that probably sparks the most debate. His versatility is being praised behind closed doors, but there's a big difference between being intelligent and being impact ready. The Ravens secondary is packed with competition. Marlon Humphrey, Nate Wiggins, TJ Tampa, and Arthur Maulet are leading the way at cornerback, while Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks lock down safety. Even if Armour Davis makes the switch full-time to safety, there's limited room, and this defense isn't just looking for guys who can do a bit of everything. They want specialists who can make game-changing plays. The fact that they're considering a position switch this late says something. They're searching for a role for him. They're trying to justify keeping him. That doesn't scream confidence. It screams uncertainty. And with roster spots at a premium, uncertainty is dangerous. Finally, we circle back to Anthony Miller, maybe the most clear-cut of all. He's a name you forget until he flashes, and that's not a great thing in this league. Yes, he had some solid moments in practice, but let's face it, the WR room is crowded and very talented. Zay Flowers is on a trajectory to become a top NFL playmaker. Rashad Bateman, finally healthy, is set to prove his worth as a former first-rounder. And DeAndre Hopkins, well, he's DeAndre Hopkins. Then you've got younger guys like Leonte Wester and Devontae Walker who are flashing serious potential, and Tylan Wallace, who's carved out a reliable role on special teams and beyond. Even Dayton Wade is pushing hard for a spot. Miller is essentially a just-in-case option, and in a team this deep, those guys usually find themselves on the practice squad or on the street. So now the pressure's on. The Ravens don't need to make these decisions yet, but you better believe they're watching closely. Preseason reps, special teams performance, and chemistry with the starters, every detail matters. The margin for error is razor thin, and Baltimore isn't in the mood for sentimentality. They want players who can contribute now. What do you think, Ravens flock? Which of these four do you believe deserves a second chance? And which one would you cut without hesitation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from every corner of the flock. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss part 2 of this breakdown. There's more roster drama on the way. Smash that like button if you haven't already, and check out the next video right here on the screen for even deeper Ravens insights.